I've just seen Caligula in a way that I've never seen it before, and that's not surprising. We're at a new venue from an Italian-based collective, and it's called Teatro Fisico, which was a really London accent version of saying that. And I'm joined by
Isabella Egizi
and
Nicholas Scott Redding.
And having seen two shows, and the noises in the background of Tom Corradini, who's also part of this group, and an initiator of it, really. And for people that don't know, I've just had a rich theatre experience. And Grotowski might call that poor theatre, because it's just you. I mean, there might be one or two props. But so my opening question is, what's the point of having costumes, props and set when we can have theatre like this?
That's a very good question. I think it depends on the story that you're trying to tell. It depends on the effect that you're trying to have on whoever is watching. I believe that whatever style is chosen for whatever particular piece of theatre is entirely personal, and it's all up to taste and the best medium and method for getting a story across to its visitors.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem at all with costumes and props. I think that at least what we're doing with these shows that we've brought for this Fringe puts us in a kind of vulnerable position where we cannot sort of sit back and rely on things that are not our own body to tell the story. So we have only our body to tell the story, and it puts us in a kind of psychological position where you realize that the link you have with the audience is just purely that, and it helps. It helps. I mean, I think if we had very sumptuous costumes and elaborate props for this show, after all the training that we've done to create it and make it what it is, perhaps it could work. But for the moment, this is the only way that's really possible for us, because it is essentially poor theater. I mean, we traveled here in a van, and what fit in the van is what we brought. And so
I want to back you both into a corner, and you can come out fighting. but so here, you can cut somebody's head off without a sword, and the audience sees the head come off.
Right.
So, but were you saying if I had money, I'd have a sword?
No. When you for example, that.
I mean, I'm relieved.
Yeah. What I would say is that the beauty of mime is that you create the illusion, and thus the audience begins using their imagination with you, and what you create for them manifests in front of their eyes, and it looks like magic. And it's actually much more believable than a lot of special effects. Now, some special effects can be very astonishing, and I think it's also a totally valid art form, but it's a different art form.
And you had some shadow dance, for example. Which
for example.
Is a special effect. Okay, I've still got you in the corner, I think.
Yeah.
So then why, and this is a spoiler alert, but why when you syringed him to pacify him, did you have a real syringe?
For me, I think that this show exists in on a lot of different planes, as in a lot of different dimensions. So partly because my character, well, also everyone's character is going in and out of different levels of belief. So there are moments where we're in the mental institution, and I feel like I'm a very lucid nurse that's trying to manage the people in this ward, and then there are moments where I become this clown alter ego, and I'm completely playing along, and I get sucked into this alternate reality as well. And I follow this trail along with the audience of when we get pulled into another person's reality, which I think also speaks to the effects that we're talking about of a political leader.
Okay. But
Yeah.
so I'm buying. Sorry, go on.
About the syringe.
I've still got you in the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
The syringe, I think, is an interesting moment because it's a symbolic object, because she's talking about the death of Caligula, who was stabbed, obviously, with a sword. But then the syringe takes us back to the let's say the dramatic context, which is this the psychiatric ward, right? And so we see in the syringe the sword, and so it's a kind of super object in that way. And I don't know, for example, with Mr. Jackpot, I mime a syringe, and it's perfectly, I think, okay. So it's not as though it's a small object and therefore it can't be mimed. It's more that it takes on extra meaning by making it a syringe, because it reminds us where we are.
So, because we're trying to get under the skin of Lecoq, and all the shows here are inspired using Lecoq and other things as well. So, the syringe, is that a playful decision, or is there a rule?
I think that it can be. There's always a sort of playful, perhaps whimsical aspect to symbolism in this type of theater, which is why I love it, because it's multi-layered. It could be fun even for children under 18. I mean, our show is rated for 14 plus, so we've performed it also for middle schoolers and high schoolers. So there's all these different layers. Maybe an adult psychology is able to see a deeper meaning. For me, the syringe is an important symbol to show visually in this show, at the end of this show, because it also bridges a time gap. Because we're jumping between ancient society and modern society, talking about relevant themes throughout history. So to me, this syringe is a timeless blade. And it's a symbol that brings us back from the ancient society, and it's a wonderful juxtaposition between the words I'm saying. I'm still giving this history lesson. We're still in ancient Rome. He's still kind of Caligula in front of his spectators here, but at the same time with this one little object that, in this context, I wouldn't be able to mime.
Right.
That's important.
I've got you going now.
Sorry, just a thought that I had was, I mean, there is a part of it which is mine, because there is no needle there. But it creates a sense of something visceral.
That wasn't a needle?
No, there was no needle that entered in my
made you
shoulder.
see it.
Right in the bone, it was.
Take that, Stanislavski.
But, so for me, I mean, I would say there's no rules. It was a choice that we made because it seemed like something that would create a kind of visceral reaction that would be up to par with the viscerality, both of the death of Caligula, but also of someone who's being anesthetized because they've gone out of control. But I mean, really, there are no rules. For example, if you had seen the show at the first 3 days, instead of a mimed Drusilla, we had a sex doll who was wearing a dress, and she popped recently, and so we had to take her out of the show and introduce a mimed Drusilla, who was Caligula's sister, for those of you who haven't seen the show. And it works better. I mean, it was... So these shows are also, I would say, evolving, and we're not... we don't know the right answers, and we're learning as we do them. I mean, for me, just as a kind of general comment, what I've been loving so far about the Fringe is every single show I'm finding something about the craft, something about the show itself that I can improve on. And this for me is incredible.
Yeah. And so for those of you wondering what the hell we're talking about, we're talking about shows here that probably are united by the word Lecoq, but they're also united by physical theatre, diversity, experimentation, rave dancing, props, not props, the red nose, not the red nose, and it's all here. And in this particular show, you took me to ancient Rome, and you took me to other places too that created a window of the modern age into ancient Rome and back the other way. So what more do you want for not very much money? But so what I'm still interested in, because I'm interested in the choices you make here, the red nose creates an alter ego. But I saw another show here, but the alter ego doesn't have to be a red nose. So you're being inventive, you're finding it, you're not applying rules. And that's interesting, because I was looking for rules. When do they do this and when do they do that? So then where does narrative go here? Because ultimately you don't want us bamboozled by this either. There is a story. So how do you, I mean, I have a silly question, but where does the clown start? When does the rest stop? Are there borders here where you actually say, now we have to stop clowning around, now we have to stop being playful, we've got to put some story in here? Is there a dramaturgy, or does that just emerge?
Well, the shows are primarily devised, I would say, and so it does emerge. It's something that it's often a conversation, and the narratives that we create are often created through compromise, different the different artists in this company have different approaches to narrative and different ideas on how to make a narrative quote unquote logical, right? We want a kind of bare minimum of something that you can follow, because otherwise it's just chaos and it doesn't really read. But finding that through line when you're working collectively is absolutely not simple. But when it emerges, and it often does emerge slowly, it's
But if
quite
if the Amazon-style small print on the program says written and directed by Tom Corradini, then what the hell does that mean?
well, he does write.
I would add also that it has a lot to do with the musicality of the performance, which every performer that comes into these shows, because we sometimes rotate casts depending on the tours and availability, so every performer has their own musicality, and I think a lot of times the narrative can even shift depending on how we construct the beats and the musicality of that particular show. Tom provides what I would consider a score for us. There is text that we memorize, but a lot of it we have to extract using our own natural musicality in how we deliver the narrative. We have to extract that from the score that he provides us with.
But I think, and maybe it's wearing the reviewer's hat a little bit, is I like the word mischief. I've seen a couple of your shows now. I think there's a trap. And the trap is, you did this in one of the other shows with both of you, absolutely top quality, authentic Shakespeare. And so we're leaning into Shakespeare, and then the mousetrap comes down and it all unhinges. So it does feel like you anchor back sometimes in rationality, normalness, the expectations, and then just when we're getting comfortable, you throw us up in the air. That seems to be part of a house style here?
I would agree. Because I think it's important. There is an element of truth in all of these shows and in all of these stories, and there's a very human, emotional level to all of them. This morning I watched Tom's Shaolin Clown and I teared up because it was so innocent and it brought me back to childhood. And there's something, going back to your reference about costumes and the glimmer and glamour of maybe more naturalistic theater, when we just see a human being exposed on stage, feeling things and creating a reality around them, we see a very vulnerable essence that we can maybe relate to in a more immediate way. And so that's where I think sometimes the real truth of the matter comes out, and that's sometimes a trap as well. We're running along with the jokes and the gags, and then suddenly we get smacked in the face with, oh my God, I haven't thought about this in 15 years, and it just struck a chord in me because I see it reflected in the eyes of this clown.
Yeah. I mean, even if the movements are stylized and what you're seeing is not quotidian, it still has to be truthful. And I think that's, physical theater, as we're calling it, was surely a kind of historical necessity to bring theater to how to say, resurrect or bring life back into what was becoming a prose kind of styled theater. And so mime and commedia dell'arte and all of these traditions surged back in the 20th century. And there was a kind of purity that was searched for in those styles, and I think we've now passed beyond that, and we're starting at, I mean it's terrible to speak so generally, but this, I'm going to say it anyway. I think it's the distinction between physical theater and normal theater is starting to become a little bit meaningless, because it's all about truth anyway, and whether your actions are stylized or not. For us, I think part of it is the stylized action allows you to communicate to people who maybe don't communicate on your language. It gives us something universal in between ourselves. So I find that there's a lot of advantages in relying on the language of the body, but also not negating the vocal language and
yeah. Well, I mean, we've got a series at the moment. Deborah Nicholson, one of our theatre maker reviewers, has been interviewing people at the Fringe who are doing shows where, for the audience, what is performed is not their first language, either fully or in part. And that's really interesting to hear what she says. So this is a voyeuristic question, but actually this is probably the deepest one. So if you can accept it in that, so it's not a superficial one. Are you having fun?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot.
I wouldn't be here if I weren't having fun.
They are smiling. But tell me about the nature of that when actually you're working hard, it's choreographed, it's tight, there are things to do, things not to forget. You're physically, I thought you were going to, when you're doing, I don't want to say again, kind of rave dancing, then you have to be still. How do you have fun when that's all going on?
It simply is fun. I don't know how to say. It's just a lot of fun.
It's play. It's playing.
So is that the frame you're in, though we're seeing scripted, delivered performance, you're still able to hold the idea that this is the first time we've done it and we're playing?
Because it is the first time we've done it. Every time we do it, it's the first time we're doing it that time. For me, it's always fresh.
Absolutely. I mean, it always, I mean, every actor hears the first question, or the first comment that you often hear is, wow, that's incredible. How did you memorize all of that, right? But it's like the last thing you're thinking about. You never are really thinking about how much you memorize. And I'm not thinking about the score when I'm doing the performance. It's just, it's like synapses in the brain. One goes into the other, and you can just forget about what the whole picture is because they just lead in one after the other, and it's very liberating. Actually, it's not a lot of heavy brain work.
No, it's the old proverb: when a wise man walks, he just walks. I guess that's what it is. Yeah. When you were both 5, if I'd seen you then, was the evidence already there that this is how it would turn out?
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell me a bit about that, if you can.
When I was 5, I was playing dress up. I had 2 massive tubs, actually, ironically, exactly like the tubs that we used to bring all of the pieces for our sets here. And I would act out films. I had a huge old film collection, and this was back when we had VHS, and so I had the convenience of having about 20-30 minutes to rewind. So I'd watch a movie through fully, and then I'd figure out the costume pieces I wanted, and while it was rewinding, I'd go to my tubs and get my costume pieces, and then I'd re-watch the whole thing, acting it out. With whatever I could find. So I love this type of theater because it's what I used to create in my living room.
And the 3 minutes to rewind has been stolen from us evilly by the digital age. Yeah. So the signs were there. You were dressing up, and this is what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same for you.
Well,
Were you like on the calculator, being on the calculator?
I wasn't on the calculator so much. I mean, I was a very sensitive boy, and I was very into music and painting. I loved painting and drawing. And in high school, I was in a very intense visual arts program. And after that, my first year in college, I was studying poetry at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics. I took a lot of strange paths in my life. I studied filmmaking at the same university where Matt Groening, the inventor of The Simpsons, studied animation. Mm-hmm. And after all that, I found myself in New Orleans, and just a friend of mine asked if I wanted to act, and I tried it out, and it was a lot of fun. And so I had always, my mom tells me that when I was 2 years old, I declared to her that I wanted to be an artist, so there must have been something, but when I first started acting, I imagined that theater was a kind of culmination of all the arts together, and having more or less studied all of the arts, I thought that would be perfect. I'll start acting now. But as soon as I started taking it seriously and got into it, I realized that it really is its own thing, and it's for the actor, the work of art is his or her own body. So you're sculpting yourself, you're working with what is literally there, and that can be something you have to contend with, because you have to be convincing, and sometimes you want to play a role, but it's not who you are, so you find yourself playing the roles that you really are, and it's such a kind of psychological trip.
Are you saying you were a wild child or you weren't?
I was a wild child. That is true. Absolutely. No, I had lots of fun in the mud and woods. I was mostly in the woods all the time as a kid.
While I've got you here, there were two shows at the Fringe that are labelled as Buto shows. And one of them, actually from somebody I know in Brighton, Resonant Void, is down at Leith. And well worth seeing. But part of that, it's my kind of very limited knowledge though, is it is performative, but only to the performer themselves. They're performing, they're on stage, but this is not about performing to an audience primarily. So to what extent, when you are in this show, is there a kind of in the real awareness that there's an audience and you're bouncing off them and reacting? And to what extent is the interaction between you so real to you that you forget the audience? And is that important?
For me, the audience is absolutely there as a critical component of the show. I mean, I get a lot from just looking at them and speaking directly to them and getting a sense of what kind of communication they're sending to me. You know,
and I thought in the Red Nose you were
conversation.
To me at one point. You were definitely
I would say because this isn't true with all shows, particular to this one, because of my character, I'm constantly aware that even when I'm in the clown mentality, I know that I am here as a volunteer and I'm caring for these people. So as soon as, in fact, we have it that I'm here welcoming people when they arrive, and as soon as everyone comes in, I'm looking them in the face and I'm starting to get to know them and care for them as if they were patients that I've been working with for the last 5 months. So I'm aware of them in that sense. And there are moments where there's heightened emotion, where it gets a little scary. There are moments where he's freaking out and our other patient is freaking out. And I genuinely check in with the audience to see if they're all doing okay.
Right.
So in that sense, yes, I'm always aware of them. But there are moments that I get lost in the play, and I let him take the lead with his illusion because it's fun, and we're here for him. And then it's like a kind of maternal role, I feel, of like, yes, I want to play along with you, but also I'm responsible here.
My final question I'm going to call the nosy question. So genuinely you can say just mind your own business and then we can end the interview. But seriously, so what we saw was high skill. Excellent skill and all the shows, and you are fine at what you do, excellent at what you do. So what is there now at your different ages to learn? What, if you could share with us, you're going, yeah, but I want to do that better. I haven't done this. This is my blind spot. I want to bring more of this in. So where are you going in your own development now? Just any clues?
I've been actually reflecting on this a lot, just to share a small personal aspect about being at this Fringe for me. I was here 10 years ago with a show, the summer I graduated from college, and I saw an Italian physical theater show that year, and I remember watching this girl with a red nose on and saying, that's what I want to go work on, because I didn't train with physical theater in the United States. It was sort of a piece that was missing for me. Right. I was very classically trained with Shakespeare and more realistic text-based theater, and so I had this kind of in the back of my mind. I didn't search for it really consciously, but it was just in the back of my mind, and for the last 10 years apparently I've been working towards it because I find myself here now. So I've been seeing some dance in recent years, and I've noticed, okay, now I've gotten thanks to Tom, I've learned a bit about clowning. I've done some dance theater classes as well, but I'm finding myself more and more drawn to movement and having more control over my body, even just as I'm in my 30s now, so I'm learning that I need to also care for my body in a more conscious way if I want to keep doing this. So that, I would say, is the new seed that I'm planting this time. Maybe 10 years from now I'll come with a dance company, who knows?
There'll be plenty to learn, exactly.
I mean, I'm very self-critical. I'm never really satisfied with anything. Even I can be happy, but for me it's fun to find what I need to improve. It doesn't affect me like emotionally to think back and think, oh, there I could improve. That's actually a good thing if I can find that. So
where's the itch?
Where's the itch? Yeah, the current itch, I would say, yeah, it's kind of not related to theater as much. I would like to work more on the minimalism that is required of cinema, and work more towards the being able to have really fine motor control of the face without really thinking about it, how to develop those kind of muscle memories that read immediately from super minor details that, let's say, wouldn't work in theater, but for cinema, I'm interested in working on that. Yeah.
Teatro Fisico, shows to see throughout the Edinburgh Fringe. You could do a whole day trip here, which hopefully some people will do. But both of you, thanks for talking to
Thank
Fringe
you so
Review.
much. Thank you.